What's good? So, Kawasaki now, bike is going to receive a complete strip down. Now, we're really fortunate. We're dealing with some great companies. We've got the Wheel Clinic who have kindly offered to spray all of the fairings for us. They are going to a totally different colour to what they are now. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen the poll that went up recently, basically saying what colour this is going to be. So we've gone for the colour scheme. He's going to have his own little take on it. He's just going to have some fun with it. So that should be great. Double D Graphics doing a couple of little vinyls to go on there. HEL Performance, they're going to redo the brake system for us, which is just fantastic. We're also getting the wheels sprayed. And last and most definitely not least, Black Widow are coming through with a brand new exhaust system, which is going to be insane. Because currently it's the standard downpipes, it's a D-Cat and it's got a Black Widow can, but I just feel the full Black Widow system is going to be phenomenal. More about Black Widow soon, but for now, this has got to be stripped down. So I think best thing to start with is to get all of these fairings off and see how we're looking. Let's get going. And yes, before you lot start, I'll put the other trainers on, because you lot were crying about these. I'm not trying to wear nice trainers in the workshop, but yeah. Let's get on with this anyway. You won't feel a thing. With that, we are underway with removing the fairings. So the good thing with track fairings, as some of you will know, some of you won't, you do have these quick release connectors where they're sort of half twist. Now, rather than your sort of conventional bike where you have fairing bolts everywhere, which they are brilliant, they stay in place. Track, you want to be able to get parts on and off very quickly, whether that's because you need to do a quick repair, you need to get access to points, or even if you just want to change something on a track day. So rather than spending ages and ages having to undo 6mm bolts everywhere, you've got these half twist clips which just make life a lot quicker and a lot easier. And with that, as simple as 4 bolts, that whole front end straight off, which is just nice and easy, exactly what you want. A little bit of wiggling, make sure I don't pull anything out of the way, but that's the front end completely stripped off. The belly pan, not too dissimilar. So the front of the belly pan is obviously bolted into the nose of the bike, and then it's just 1 bolt either side, and that came straight off. The rear of the bike is where it starts to get a little bit more involved. Now we've got side fillets which attach to the fuel tank. We've got 1 bolt either side which holds the tail into the bike. We've got 2 bolts at the back of the tail which hold it down. As well as this particular bike, it has a rain light. Now you don't need that for a track day. However, if you ever do racing or anything like that, you'll need a rain light, of course, for when it rains. Really important that people can see when you're braking, especially when you can hardly see anything, so it all helps. So with that being said, just want to double check, make sure the connections are the right way around, memorize the connections, take a photo if you need to, but just make sure you unplug them and don't try and yank the rear tail off, because you'll just end up snapping the connectors. Once the fillets are removed, we could then make our way to the fuel tank. Now the fuel tank, I had probably one of the best ideas, and you'll see that in a moment. But before we get to that point, the fuel tank was relatively straightforward. There's a couple of bolts either side. You have a sort of pivot hinge bolt that sits where basically your crotch area is when you sit on the bike. So undo that, just gives it a bit more wiggle room, and then you can start to remove it. Now with this having an aftermarket steering damper, those bolts go through the fuel tank. So I thought I'd get away with just undoing the bolts and being able to move it. Unfortunately I couldn't, so you'll see I then had to remove the bolt for the steering damper. Once the fuel tank was out of the way, this is where the best idea come in. Now I need to drain the fuel out, but I didn't want to tip it upside down and get it everywhere. I replugged the cable in for the fuel pump, kept turning the key on, off, and it was throwing out 100–150ml of fuel every time. So each time it was priming, it was throwing the fuel out, which was perfect because it saved me probably a good 20 minutes just for this alone. Now thankfully HEL Performance are helping us out with the brake system this, and you'll see why. So for some reason I feel the back of the brake lever itself had failed and it was allowing moisture in. So what was happening is the water was getting in, it was going really cloudy, and it was giving me next to no brake pressure whatsoever. I tried bleeding the system conventionally, crack the bleed nipple, bring some pressure up, crack it again, and it just wasn't pushing anything through. For the tiny bit that was trying to dribble through, it was going straight back again. We had to do it a slightly unconventional way. By that, we had to take the brake line off, which was still loaded up with brake fluid, which is not ideal and it goes everywhere, but I didn't really have too much of a choice. So once we'd got that off, then they just had to drain it straight into a funnel, decompress the pistons within the brake caliper itself, and just get the last bit of fluid out of there. A bolt in there just to make sure no moisture gets in there, it's all nice and snug, and that is pretty much everything done with that front brake system. Then able just to remove a couple of the bolts where the aftermarket HEL Performance lever sits, and then we can get that packaged and sent off to HEL Performance to get rebuilt, which I can't wait to get done. And I'm slowly starting to see the end point with this project. It's not a crazy difficult one. but it's one of those where there's quite a lot to get done in such a short space of time when we've got so many different series going on, and I'm desperate to get back out on track. Like, I can't explain to you how much I want to get back out on track. Now, I would have taken the front mudguard off a lot earlier, but unfortunately, where the brake lines and the ABS sensor run through underneath the forks, they're hooked on to this front mudguard. Not the nose cone, that's already off. So where the front mudguard has these sort of points riveted on, you can't just take the mudguard off and pull it through the center of the forks. You have to get the wheel out to drop it down to then allow enough space to get that mudguard to drop down, and then you can pull it through. Annoyingly, as always with me with poor preparation, that will get better, I guess. We managed to get the wheel off, but the camera didn't pick it up. Pretty straightforward, to be honest. It's not too different to the front. Whip one of the nuts off on the other side of the spindle, pull it out, loosen the chain, and that is pretty much it. Job's good and straight off. Now up to the last couple of things now. So before we drain the oil out of the system, I wanted to get this exhaust system off entirely. So it wasn't too difficult with these. Once again, it's nice and straightforward. Rear bracket for the rear exhaust, just pop that off. I lost a couple of the bolts and then found them. So that's why I was scratching around trying to find those. Managed to get the bolt, managed to get the washer and all that good stuff, and just pop it back in there so you don't lose it, because you would not believe the amount of things you lose just simply by not putting bolts back in the hole they come from. Remove the O2 sensor. Now, if your bike is mapped with the O2 sensor in, you're going to need to make sure that you keep that back in there unless you get it mapped and flashed out of the system. Otherwise, the bike's just going to start throwing up volts left, right and center. For anyone at any point who has ever removed downpipes, whether that's cars, bikes, anything like that, you'll know full well that getting the stud nuts out is an absolute nightmare, and 90% of the time you will get at least one that snaps. Now, I should have bought a lottery ticket after this one, because I managed to get all eight of them out without any snapping, without having to use any heating equipment or anything like that. So I always leave the centre bit in there just so it's held on in the central point of the exhaust system, because the last thing you want to do is have it hanging down off the headers, because you're just going to start bending stuff and it's not worth it. So once we got that out, that was it. The whole exhaust system is off, and the bike is looking less and less of a bike the further we get into this video. So last couple of bits. Pop the drain plug out, drain the oil, get it prepped and ready. Now, the oil was actually very clean. I'd only used it twice in the last season, so it had been stored away nicely. I only used it a couple of times and the oil was really clean. Now, always hold the little sump plug up against the oil itself. It's got a magnet in the bottom. If that oil moves anywhere near the magnet, do not start that engine until you get it fixed, because metal should not be going through the oil. So that's pretty much that. Kawasaki is all completely stripped down, wheels are off, front brakes are off. HEL Performance is going to sort out the front brake for us, which is fantastic and much appreciated. So thank you very much to HEL Performance. Fairings are going off to the wheel clinic along with the wheels, so it's going to get a complete new respray. I'm not sure what colour he's going to do the wheels yet. I'm going to leave that up to him. If you follow me on Instagram, like I said at the start, you'd have seen what colours people wanted to have the fairings go to. So we're just waiting to see what's going to happen with that. So that should be pretty interesting. So yeah, fairings getting sprayed, wheels getting sprayed, front brakes getting redone, Black Widow sending us out an exhaust system, which is going to be absolutely fantastic to hear. I know full well it's going to be great. I already had a Black Widow on there, and the Black Widow was insane. Had standard sort of headers, decap pipe, and then the Black Widow. So having a full Black Widow system is just going to change this bike completely. Other than that, that's pretty much where we're at. Danny D is going to be doing some vinyl wraps once I get the fairings back, but for the next week or two, this is how the bike is going to sit. It's the 1st of February today, so that gives you an idea of how long it takes to edit this video and get it out. Other than that, that's where we're at. So we'll see how we get on. Now, I've got a huge amount to clear up and I'm going out for dinner in half an hour, so I need to be very quick. Thank you guys very much for watching. This is going to be a wicked little series and I can't wait for you guys to join me along the way. Take care, guys. See you in the next one.